The final two bosses of the Venomous Abyss do not just drop bigger numbers on Mythic. Blizzard is putting above cap Myth 9 gear there, and some of the season's strangest chase effects come with it. That is a major change in what in-game loot is supposed to mean. Most Myth Track gear still tops out at Myth 6. Very rare drops can go higher, but Blizzard's published Season 2 rules give the penultimate boss, the Coiled Altar, and the final boss, Ula'tek, a much broader exception. Their mythic drops and their matching Great Vault rewards land at Myth 9. So the reward is not merely 3 extra upgrade steps you grind later, it arrives at that final level, and because these bosses carry distinctive weapons, trinkets, and armor effects, the real advantage may be harder to replace than a plain stat stick. The clearest example is Ula'tek's Venomcursed gear. Current PTR data shows versions that favor critical strike, haste, or mastery. The effect can proc from your spells and abilities, sharply raising that favored secondary for 12 seconds while reducing your other secondary stats. This is not free power spread evenly across your character, it is a deliberate trade. Concentrate more of the stat your build wants, and temporarily give up some of the rest. The exact tuning can still change before release, the important design is already visible. A leather helm built around haste or plate legs built around mastery can be more than armor with a higher budget. For the right specialization, that proc profile can make the piece feel tailor-made. For the wrong one, it may be awkward. That is what makes it a chase item instead of a universal spreadsheet upgrade. Then there's the Catalyst interaction. Blizzard says Season 2 items converted at the Catalyst keep their original secondary stats and special effects. In other words, converting an eligible Venomcursed piece into tier should not automatically wash away the reason you chased it. This makes the final boss armor relevant even when your set bonus is already the priority. The loot in the tier system can reinforce each other instead of competing for the same slot. Blizzard is also adding targeting tools, but they do not erase the source of the best loot. A weekly Voidcore can help you upgrade one raid item or craft a strong piece. It appears in the Great Vault from the season start, while a supplemental weekly path begins after 8 weeks. Later in the season, Ascendant Venomstones can push eligible necklaces, trinkets, and weapons to Myth 8. Those stones can come from high-end raid, Mythic Plus, delves, and prey activities. That matters. A dedicated Mythic Plus player is not locked at the ordinary Myth 6 ceiling forever. But Myth 8 is still one step below Myth 9, and the catch-up system arrives later. It softens the gap without deleting the prestige of the final 2 mythic bosses. Now look at the actual loot identity. The Voracious Heart of Ula'tek is an on-use trinket that boosts strength or ability, then rewards repeated attacks with extra damage and additional primary stat during its window. Font of Venomous Rage channels a burst into one target and splashes nearby enemies. Zathatek, Breath of Corruption, can leave a necrotic tear that strengthens repeated procs against the same target. These PTR effects are subject to tuning, but they are not generic, more stat rewards. They ask where the item fits, what target pattern favors it, and whether your specialization can exploit the window. That is the strongest case for Blizzard's direction. Mythic raiding has a coordination cost that a weekly dungeon route does not perfectly reproduce. 20 players have to progress through the same encounter, and the last bosses should feel like the end of the raid, not like an inconvenient detour before the Great Vault hands out equivalent rewards. When the best raid loot has a recognizable identity, killing the boss matters again. But the accessibility objection is real too. Nobody can honestly say every Mythic Plus player is forced to raid. That is not how most groups work. The pressure is social and structural. Group leaders see item level, they see a rare trinket or weapon. If 2 applicants look similar, and one has Myth 9 chase gear, the other player can feel behind before the key even starts. That feeling becomes stronger when the advantage works perfectly inside Mythic Plus. The raid item is earned in one mode, then helps secure invitations and ranking progress in another. For players who love dungeons but cannot commit to a Mythic raid schedule, the gap can feel less like prestige and more like a second job requirement, even if the numerical difference is modest. There's also a healthy counterpoint. Endgame modes do not need perfectly identical rewards. If every activity feeds the same cap, the game loses reasons to care where an item came from. A visible, modest advantage can make Mythic Ula'tek aspirational without invalidating a player who reaches Myth 8 through other high-end content, so the design succeeds or fails on scale. Myth 9 should feel special. Venomcursed armor and unusual boss weapons should make raid loot memorable. But if their combined value dominates best-in-slot lists across too many specializations, community pressure will turn a prestige gap into a mandatory feeling gap. My verdict: restoring raid identity is healthy, and a modest final boss advantage is defensible. Blizzard's targeting and catch-up systems are meaningful safeguards. The live tuning, the breadth of the chase items, and how much they matter outside the raid will decide whether Season 2 feels rewarding or restrictive. Should Myth 9 chase items keep their full advantage inside Mythic Plus, or should that edge shrink when you enter a Keystone?